anyone else is being touched by all these faces all together. We just want to chat. It's so lovely.
I am.
Thank you, everyone, for being here tonight. And we'll turn it over to Willa, I think, is our first person tonight.
Hi, everyone. It's so good to see you all, even on Zoom. Yeah, so Katy and I are going to talk, I think, for 20, 25 minutes. Hopefully, Katy will talk mostly. And then after that, we hope everyone will chime in and ask questions, but mostly share stories of their own. And so just to start with, I wanted to share some of my own reflections. I have my notes. My name's Willa, if anyone doesn't know me. I can't see everyone at the same time. I grew up a mile outside the village, and I feel like I can't tell the story of my life so far without talking about that other store. It's been so important to me and my family. Going way back, my grandfather and great-grandmother and great-great-grandmother shopped there. And then more recently, my mother started working there in the early years of Katy's store at the Daily Cafe. She was about my age. And while she was cooking breakfast there one day, she and my father met for the first time. As my father's lore would have it, she was slinging hash at the other store, and the rest is history. So my sister and I growing up liked to say that you can get anything at the other store, even a father. And so in some respects, it's thanks to the other store that I was born. And then it was such a huge part of my upbringing. Yeah, I mean, if it takes a village to raise a kid, the other store really did its part raising me. Some of my earliest memories are of playing on the banister outside the store and splashing around in the river and spinning on the red stools at the counter while Ellen and June entertained me. I have just like the earliest, faintest, loveliest memories of Ellen from when I was 2 or 3. Kurt's always there in my earliest memories and all my memories probably of the other store. When I was a toddler, I was scared of him and his big beard, but I got over that. And when my sister Molly and I were young still, we probably hadn't started school, she and I would have breakfast on the back porch of the store with our friends Madeline Moneypenny and our mothers, and Madeline's brother Henry when he came along. And we had this whole amazing imaginary world behind the store. You know, there were witches and fairies and good guys and bad guys, and we would play by the river and put on plays for each other on the stage, and we would befriend the Barnstormers actors in the summer. And then when Molly and I turned 7 or 8, our grandmother gave us these big purple bikes. And I remember feeling just beyond grown up because we could ride down to the store and we could get our parents screws or light bulbs or whatever. And we had totally free reign of penny candy there. This was like early freedom. And then we started meeting our friends at the stores for meals or ice cream cones. It feels like we spent thousands of afternoons doing this. And on snow days, we would walk down and we'd go sledding on the hill across from the Remick Museum, 3 Bump Hill, with the Staffords. And then we'd all walk over for lunch, and June would meet us at the door. We'd be soaking wet, and she'd bring us piles of towels, sort of shepherd us in to get dry. And then the summer we were 14, Molly and I started working at the store. And this felt like a really big deal. We got to follow in the footsteps of the glorious teenagers before us who are here, and they're not teenagers, Liza and Grace and Hannah and Danielle and Leah and Eliza. And we got to start working with the gods of our childhood mythology, also many of whom are here, June and Katy and Betty and Linda and Crosby and Andrea and Rachel and Sarah and Kelly, so many people. We started to get the great honor of serving food to Kurt almost every day for a while. And we just got to know all these amazing people. I feel like there are too many to list, but Skip and John and Richard and Robert and Glenn and Janet and Natalie and Melissa and Lindy and Charlotte would come to breakfast almost every day. And Nancy and Jim and Alex would show up in the summertime. And Scott would come in with Henry, and then Joe, and Willie would come in, and Joe Sems. And I learned the orders of so many regulars, and I learned to run a cash register, and I learned to make an omelet. And the people who sat up at the counter had so much advice for me when I was going off to school or on a big trip, or when I was cooking their breakfast or getting my ears pierced. They were deeply invested. And then I went to boarding school, and my friends there knew all about the other store. And during my breaks, I'd come back and get to visit everyone. And I ended up working at the other store for 6 summers. This was the first summer since I turned 14 that I wasn't there. And throughout my time there, it kept attracting just these wonderful people. Ashlyn showed up, and Jenna, and I learned so much from them. And Belle arrived, and Hillary. This was so exciting. I will never forget returning home my senior year of high school and getting to meet John Hidden. I'm gonna cry. John, I don't know if you're here, but it was such a joy getting to meet you that day. And it's been a joy ever since, running from your camera. Anyway, the other store felt magic to me when I was a tiny kid, when we were all pretending to be witches, mixing magic potions by the river. But it has really retained its magic for me ever since. And what makes that magic so real, I think, is all of you, all the people who show up, sometimes very serendipitously, and give their hours to the store. And I always had a vague sense growing up that a lot of people were kind of involved with making the store work. But over the past years, I've really got to witness in action all these quiet angels who work behind the scenes and bring the papers and drop off groceries and go to the dump and bake cookies. There are the customers and the employees, and the customers who moonlight as employees and the employees who moonlight as customers. But all the people who work there, the locals, the summer people, all the people passing through those doors have made the other store this amazing beating heart, this community gathering place. And of course, at the heart of this magic, at the helm of all these quiet angels is Katy, the great steward of the store who rescued it 30 years ago. So Katy, I'm so grateful that you've given us all the gift of this place. I'm so grateful that I got to sort of grow up there. And I'm so honored to get to be a part of this with you tonight. And I'd love to turn things over to you. I want to hear your story and everyone else's. So thank you so much, everyone, for being here. And Katy, what you got for us?
Thank you, Willa. That was such fun. And of course, it made me cry as well as laugh. It was great. Thank you for being here, everyone. What a day, to quote our friend Tom Cleveland. Honored to be part of a Tamworth footnote and talk about a subject that has enriched my life in surprising and delightful ways for 27 years. I am reading, but I hope to not be too boring. I was scared to try to ad lib. I think the other store has a life of its own that started long before any of us were around and has made itself evident all through the years I've known it. It wants to be here in Tamworth and reinvent itself with the times and keep on keeping on. And this expresses itself mostly through people, but also through wood and glass, breakfast and lunch and ice cream, dogs and trees and river, surprises and gifts and synergies from out of the blue, and it doesn't seem to want to stop. I first discovered the other store in 1970 when I moved to town full-time. I wandered into this lovely, cozy, welcoming place where Arlene Farnham and Nancy Coville would help you find paint or cough drops or bow saws or socks. I bought some of each. I kept coming back. Groceries were in the big building next door, where I remember Willie Farnham, age 15 or 16, behind the counter. Simple white wooden shelving up and down the middle and sides, counter on your right as you went in through the screen door, and the bell jangled. The other store had stuff like socks, plaid shirts, work boots, candy from a big case, ice cream, greeting cards, children's books, clothespins, sewing supplies, paint, nails, and glass hammers and saws. And maybe a little later, you could get tomato soup and saltines for lunch. Same soda fountain we have today. The store was dark inside, brown ceiling paint, and red cowboy wallpaper in some places. This was the lowercase other store. No sign, no fanfare. You just knew it was there. Or if you didn't know, maybe if you asked for toothpaste at the grocery store, they'd send you over there. Nancy Coville was managing the store for Waddy and Earl Remick, later for and with Margaret Waddy's widow. You'd find Nancy in the store along with Willie's mother, Arlene Farnham, with her big brown eyes, Kelly Goodson's great aunt, Peggy Tripp, and later on, Anita Nudd, all friendly, kind, and helpful. Nancy had started the Tamworth preschool in the 60s and made sure that the store had a small section of good children's books, toys, and games. Hardware was mostly down cellar. There was a glass cutter right at the foot of the stairs, and the gals kept a card catalog of everyone's paint purchases, from Jim Breasted's extra special shade of brownish pink for the Barnstormers woodwork inside, to Emma Welch's maybe gray kitchen floor enamel. The present dining room was a windowless paint room or nail room. The upstairs, well, I'm hoping Nancy Coville will be able to join us and tell us about her experience there. We're not sure, but I hope so. In the summer of 1975, I began working on the Barnstormers crew painting sets. Like everyone, I'd take a break now and then and go get a coffee ice cream cone at the other store. One day, ice cream cone in hand, procrastinating on getting back to work painting in the boiling sun, I wandered hesitantly around at the back of the store and discovered the most lovely place in the whole village. Peaceful, green, shady, old white barns, the river. They were, I was blown away. Sometime in the 80s, Nancy's preschool was taking more of her time. Arlene and Peggy were ready to retire, and Joan Remick Casarato, Waddy's daughter, and her husband Pete came back to town from Illinois, where they had raised their 5 kids. And Joan took over running the store with wonderful Anita as a key player when she wasn't playing softball in the Tamworth women's team. Heavens, Joan added stuffed animals. We weren't sure that was all right or not. Anyway, she kept the store lively and useful for almost a decade. Then, as she used to tell it, the store was taking more of her time and she had to choose between the store and her husband. And she chose Pete and sold the other store to the Whitties, a Massachusetts couple with 3 or 4 kids, and the grocery store to someone else, which I can't quite remember who at that point. It wasn't the Bernavas, it was before that. Anybody remember? Say so later. At that point, sadly, things began to unravel a little bit. I'm sorry, this is more history than stories, but it is a bit of stories, so I'll keep going. The economy was beginning to make it harder for small stores across the country, and the Whitties were a bit inexperienced and disorganized. Their youngest child had special needs. They painted the outside of the store dark purple and gray. Store hours dwindled and then weren't very predictable. There was a good deal of cigarette smoke mingled with the smell of hamburgers cooking. The young teenage daughter was often left in charge, and the final blow came with the unexpected expense of suddenly they needed a new leach field. A few years later, the Tamworth Foundation stepped in and helped us solve that problem. But anyway, the store closed. The Whitties went back to Mass and the building sat there dark and empty for a couple of years, and we just missed it terribly. Sometime in 1990, there was a notice of a foreclosure auction. I remembered the lovely, peaceful backyard by the river. And I always have loved buildings and imagining how they might be remodeled. I remember the Nancy and Anita atmosphere. I thought someone has to do something. Maybe I could buy it, renovate it, pass it on to somebody who knows how to run a store. I thought that might take 3 years and I could go on with my life. And I talked it on over with a few people. It seemed scary. My sister Lisa said, go ahead. Dale Bragdon reminds me that she and Anita and I had a confab up at her house. The morning of the auction, they cheered me on and we sort of had a pact that we'd help each other. I was the only bidder at the auction. The floor was starting to look a bit iffy over by the soda fountain. Everything was kind of falling down. We stayed near the front door. The price was low. I bought it. Now what? Very scary. I called Nat Steele. He and his crew, Carl Baer, Chris Norse, and Amy Barrier, said they'd take it on. It took us 3 years to renovate. First, I painted the front door an orange red and then invited the little kids in to paint murals on the windows. That was not very hard. Then I also talked to people about how to run a store, and we put out an APB for suggestions. Chris built a small red box out of wood with a peaked roof that we put out front on a long pole for questionnaires for everybody to fill out. Surprise, people wanted the store back the way it was before. Hardware, paint, aspirin, hairspray, household stuff, ice cream, maybe clothing, lunch, useful everyday stuff, and a few ideas about social and cultural this and that. Nat and his crew worked on the main building in the fall, winter, and spring of 91, 92, 93. What's the time looking like, I wonder? Okay. It became clear that the whole project was going to take a while. In order to have something going on, in 1990, we opened the shop by the river shop in the little barn. In the end, 60 plus consigners signed up to sell their creations and to take turns volunteering at the cash register, which was a big, heavy, old, clanging, rattly thing that, again, Willie Farnham comes into the picture. He loaned it to us. The rest of the year, his little boys, Greg and Robbie, played with this cash register at home. I remember Herb Damon working into the evening, helping me get set up for our opening the first summer. We had a freezer with ice cream sandwiches, and we were open in the evenings before the Barnstormers. In those days, a lot of people ate dinner at the Tamworth Inn before the theater and then strolled around town. The old Historical Society in Greg's Way was always open on Wednesday nights. We had a desk in the back by the window, a counter, I mean. We added a door in the back, which was handy for the little kids tubing on the river. They'd put in above the bridge. This was our, the river shop was just during the summer. They'd float on down, then run back up through the store with their wet feet and their tubes. I particularly remember Laurie, Vicky, and Michelle, 3 sisters whose last name I can't remember. And there were a bunch of very funny little boys who were part of that gang too. And they helped in the store. They'd draw pictures and help us price things and use the cash register with a little help. So that was kind of a multi-generational thing. Many of the consigners were older. We found a comfy wing chair and set it in the shop so the shopkeepers could sit. Lots of knitting and crocheting went on there, as well as quite a lot of snoozing, especially on a quiet summer afternoon. Here are a few of the names and their wares from various years, 93 to 6. Julie Villardo's little flower bookmarks, Louise Birch's incredibly beautiful wool mittens. June, I think you still have a pair. George Smith's hearth brooms, Flora Kingsbury's knitted baby clothes, Willie Fromm's and Herb Damon's watercolors, Sandy Beauchesne's photos, Alan Phoenix's silver jewelry, Mary Jean Lucky's pottery, Ron Betancourt's wrought iron, Rosie Lamb's earrings. Rosie was 14, I think, at the time. Bob Sylvia's Tamworth Village lampshades and painted wooden toy trucks. Marilyn Indelicato's crocheted goodies, Bunty Walsh's White Mountain School greeting cards, Will Meyer's book on ancient Greece, Joe Lane's painted t-shirts, and Christabel Eldridge's hats and ornaments. Back to the fall, Nat and his crew were back at work, and I was doing more research on how on earth to get a store going. With a community survey in hand, we knew that we wanted to find a way to have hardware again, and that we wanted to keep the ice cream as a feature and do more with lunch and maybe breakfast, as well as a few gifts and Tamworth stuff. I couldn't wait to open up the back of the building to the sun and the river view, and we wanted to have the cash register in the middle with easy access to the kitchen. We had this idea that one person could run the place in the winter, which turned out not to be true. But anyway, once the floor and the framing were safe again, the old nail room got windows, and Nat designed the deck. I loved going over and hanging out with the crew. Nat was hugely competent while laughing loudly in a very loud voice about everything and telling tales of ski and sled adventures. Carl would join in as they sat around on chairs having lunch. Amy, who was then pregnant with Wyatt, was working as hard as everybody else. Chris, I always remember, said that changing his socks at noontime greatly improved the afternoon, which is excellent advice I still follow whenever I can. Opening up the walls, we found all kinds of relics from the past: marbles, china, square nails, old signs that had been used as sheathing. The famous wine bottle I think Thad found intact with its label from an old stagecoach stop in South Tamworth. Not to mention the old corbel ceiling of what may have been the dining room when the Nicholas Varneys lived there before it was a store. And discovering that the old original soda fountain was right over in the Bremps barn, which is now the Remix Education Building, and bringing that back. I also hope Dale has been able to join in. Dale, are you here? Oh, cool. Okay. Willa says yes, because she's, I hope if there's any time left after I finish, we hope Dale is going to describe our trip to this kind of scary used appliance store in Saco, Maine, where we got the old ice cream chest freezer we're still using today, and our visit to Sam's Club in search of chairs and umbrellas. So the day after Nat and his crew left to go to another job, I missed them so much that I went upstairs, lay down, and cried for quite a long time on the nice new carpet in the office. Now there was nothing between me and starting the store. Help! I had looked around for someone else to take over at this point, but no one appeared. So what to do about hardware? The chains like True Value, Trustworthy, etc., all had mileage minimums between branches. One of them had a store at North Sandwich. We were too close. Others just sounded too big and corporate. So Jim Breasted, Mary's older brother out in Colorado, said, what about asking a good hardware store in the area if they'd be interested in running a branch in Tamworth?
Yeah.
I got my courage up and called Jean Baraka.
Part of it, yeah. You know, I wanted to take part in the
We've got somebody else talking a bit. Indy Mound Hardware in Ossipee, a store that he and his wife Dorothy had been running for a few years, is quickly gaining an enthusiastic local following for its inventory and the wonderful, friendly, cheerful service. He said he'd talk it over with Dorothy, his wife, who was kind of the business paperwork end of things, and get back to me in a week or so. To my amazement, he said yes, they would. This totally saved the day. We would have been nowhere. They were without the Barakas as partners. They were enthusiastic, energetic, informal, but businesslike, incredibly patient with my total lack of experience, and above all, community-minded and people-oriented. They understood Tamworth. Genial Jean came in and started measuring for shelving. Dorothy showed me how to set up bookkeeping systems, or tried to. Dale Bragdon wanted to try out running the lunch counter, so another piece was in place. She suggested the Daily Cafe, a name that stuck. We'd hoped Anita could join us, but by then she was managing the North Sandwich store. Then I got a call from June Crowell asking about maybe working at the other store. I knew Stoney and Renee, Sam and David, but not June, because she and Ron, had been living in Miami, raising their daughters, Tori and Tracy, and had just been back in town a few years. I asked a few people about June. Every one of them lit up and said, wow, if you could have June there, she is the best. Which, of course, turned out to be a very large understatement. We got, excuse me, We got a new cash register and a copy machine from Bob Porter in North Conway, both of which, of course, he oversaw with care. When we finally traded up to new models a few years ago, Bob's son Mark said ours were probably the oldest machines in the valley. Mary Trask had upholstered the old counter stools we found in Moultonborough in bright red vinyl. I think Dale had something to do with them too. Nat had anchored them to the floor. I went to a few gift shows in Boston, Portland, discovered how stores got stocked. I found the Smiley Brothers Candy Company in Woburn, Mass. The two founding brothers worked in the warehouse every day and remembered delivering to Nancy at the store. One of them had a place in Jackson. I think his daughter is a lawyer who lives in Jackson today. In the early 90s, there were still family businesses all around and salesmen in every field. There was the older French-Canadian couple who stopped by with their huge array of New England postcards, many gray-haired guys with neckties and briefcases ready to drive to Tamworth to help you set up an account. More locally, there was White Mountain Puzzles in Jackson, Ann Killam and her cards over in Maine. We decided on Gifford's ice cream, and the grandfatherly owner, Armand Gifford, came himself all the way over from Skowhegan to bring us signboards and ice cream and show us the right way to scoop ice cream, always in the same direction, which I don't think we've done much since. Dale and I took another trip to Sam's Club, got some chairs and umbrellas. I ordered a lot of wooden spoons and bowls from someplace in Vermont, some dish towels, and who knows what, and it was time to open. June 26, 1993 was our big day, our big magenta postcard. Boasted 4 stores in one, here to serve you. Indian Mountain Hardware, Daily Cafe, everything else. The Riverbank Craft Shop. Live music. I don't know if anybody remembers who that was. Free ice cream, drawing for prizes. Dale did an incredible job that first summer. By early August, she was feeding 40 people for lunch on the deck with her grilled chicken sandwiches and assorted delicacy. Juno Lamb was one of her assistants. The chairs and tables and umbrellas looked great and people loved the deck, even though the 2 green ash trees, fast growing, that Pete Hogue had put in for shade were still too small to make much shade. Did Ellen Eldridge join us that first year? If not, it was soon after. Her husband Hazen had recently died. She missed him terribly and wanted to be busy and with people. She was right around the corner on Depot Road. Everything Ellen said was funny. I don't know why I didn't record her every day. I hope someone will recall more than I do. I have the feeling Susie Chelberg can't be here tonight, but I know she would. The dry remarks and her gravelly voice, and I hope somebody else who's on will remember some specifics. That gravelly voice coming from the hardware of the cafe kept us all laughing. Of course, we did cook the books once in a while. Don't tell Uncle Sam. The closing drill every night included taking the cash drawer upstairs to the office. Usually June did the drawer, reconciled the daily sales in the evening, but sometimes she came in early and did it the next morning. Ellen had a hard time dealing with the annoying lock to the office door, so we agreed that some nights she'd just stow the cash drawer in the oven of the kitchen stove. There was the inevitable morning when the cook, possibly Susie, came in bright and early to get the breakfast bacon going. By the time June and Ellen arrived a bit later, a horrid smell was starting to issue from the oven, soon followed by smoke and the discovery of the melting register drawer, like a Dali painting. At least the bills were not yet in flames. Bob Porter brought us another drawer. We kept the old one as decoration for some years. Betty Watson soon joined as queen of the cafe. All oldest sisters in big families, June, Ellen, and Betty, all knew how to rally the troops and get things taken care of through rain and snow, oven fires, leaky roofs, 6-year-old bike riders with skin knees, power outages, fussy customers, though we had very few of those, running out of tomatoes or eggs, and whatever else. With her long dairy bar and Brett School cooking experience, Betty was a whiz at training up the teenagers, making 6 different omelets at once while chatting cheerfully with whoever was leaning over the counter, ordering and stocking and keeping things clean and tidy. Her cookies and pies were legendary. And of course, after a while, her daughter Vicky joined the group in the kitchen. And eventually Vicky's daughter Coe took over the cookies and pies when Betty was in Florida in the winter. I think Cassidy, Coe's daughter, is in the 8th grade now. Generations marching on. Kurt Perkins, I'm so glad, Willa, you talked about him. Currently our latest hardware department maven. He has been an incredible friend and helper at the store from the very beginning. The list of kids who work scooping ice cream and assisting at the cafe is amazingly long. It was a pretty fun first job for a 14-year-old. Not that we trained them very well, but names from the early years included Andrew and Chris Nelson, Rady Swan, Melissa Mora, Ben Buska. Andrew built our coffee shelf. The kids were always a big part of the fun of the store, and I hope will be again. Their friends and family would visit and admire this king or queen for a day of the ice cream counter. The kids would get really good at scooping and stocking, cleaning and sweeping, and would get to help find the owners of a lost dog wandering the village, or rush out to lower all the umbrellas as a thunderstorm came, or listen to June and Ellen and Glenn Evans talk about the old days. A bit later, Brittany Field, Megan Cruz, Skylar Brothers, Harrison and Lydia Gill, Hillary and Caitlin Bear, the cousins Julie Streeter, Abby Heimlich, and Amanda, whose last name I forget, Ryan Cottrell, Jake Iorfino, Wyatt Barrier, Liza and Grace Townsend, Hannah and Adam Wright, Danielle Mason, Leah and Eliza Burke, Ashley Ames, Brody Patel, I think I'm mixing up the chronology here, and more. And if you haven't tried one of our ice cream specials, Wyatt's Creamsicle Delight, you still can. More recently, Molly and Willa Canfield, a most amazing pair of people. Charlie and Taylor Williams, Wes Lochran, Maddie Quinn, Evan and Julia Eldridge, Sam Valley, and more. While we're on ice cream, I'd like to go back in time about 100 years for a minute. Before Waddy and Earl's Remix Day, Mr. Pollard ran a store in the village in both buildings at different times. Pollard, who's, I can't remember his first name, was Millie Streeter's uncle, and she remembers a store selling sewing supplies, boots and shoes, wooden bedsteads, and apparently even then, ice cream. John Hidden tells this story, which some of you have heard before. Johnny's grandfather, Harold Hidden, as a teenager, young man, worked for Mr. Pollard in the store. One day, Miss Pollard had business elsewhere and left young Harold in charge of the store. The ice cream salesman from Rochester happened to stop by that day. I have a brand new flavor this week, he said. It's the latest thing, very popular. It's made with pistachio nuts. All the stores are getting it in. I think Mr. Pollard would be glad to have it in stock. Harold wasn't sure. He wavered a bit, but then he agreed and stowed the tub away in the freezer. The next day was his day off. When he came back to work the following day, he didn't see the new tub in the freezer, and he asked Pollard about it. Oh, that, Pollard said, that nasty one, all green and spoiled to hell. I chucked that one right out with the garbage, I did. Back to only about 20 years ago, we got the idea of maybe trying a little light dinner before the barnstormers a few nights a week. I think the first main dinner cook was Raymond Kennett, Crosby's son. He was 18 and he commuted to the store every day by bike from his grandmother's in Silver Lake. He had temporarily lost his license, but was cheerful about the bike. He already had a lot of cooking experience, thanks to his dad, and he liked to bring his favorite kitchen knife with him every day, dangling off the handlebars in a leather sheath. I think dinners that year were mostly big, juicy special sandwiches with nice, fresh salads and ice cream for dessert. Simple, but popular. A few summers later, Maria DeMeo took the job. I think she was 19. She had a wonderful time putting on dinners, and 5 or 6 years later kindly said that it had been her favorite job ever. She brought us the Vermonter lunch or dinner sandwich, grilled turkey, bacon, cheddar, and Granny Smith apples on rye, which we sometimes also call the Wadsworth after Waddy Remick. She was a delight to work with. Another tradition that started small. I'm sorry I'm taking so long. Can we go extra, Amy? So everybody can talk? Anyway, another tradition, concerts by the river. Peter Heimlich used to stop by from time to time with his guitar and sing in the hardware aisles. He said, this is a natural amphitheater out here. How about a concert? I can get a platform. They jumped over at the school and set it up. The rest is history. Concert a week, summers 3 to 5 out back, ice cream, kids, dogs, river. Incredible wealth and breadth of musical talent around here. Thank you, Peter, and thank you, Belle, for producing Concerts by the River these last 5 years, and to all our sponsors. It has just been such fun. Back to the dinners. With the growth of the locally grown movement, the founding of the farmers market, and the realization that this place is just overflowing with incredible cooks, we got more serious about our dinners. We gave dinners on the deck. We gave these words capital letters and began asking guest cooks to come in. I hope you've all had something to eat before this, because I'm going to list some of the menus. Actor cooks Pam and John Schnatterly led off with menus that matched the Barnstormers play of the week. Some very funny ones. Elaine Paez launched Winter Thursday dinners. One in March 2007 featured fresh wild pollock served over an herb salad with a saffron citrus vinaigrette and baked acorn squash. The team of Shelley Miller, Nelson O'Brien, and Sachiko from Tokyo was a team that produced nori rolls, Nelson's incredible beef casserole, and a wild salad. Some people in September dinners got to taste June's ginger pear upside down cake. I really love Philip Jackson's vegan stuffed shells. In August 2009, Jim Harrison served up a chicken stir fry with corn, tomatoes, eggplants, green beans, garlic, and basil. Served up a potato leek cake with goat cheese and salad green with ginger tamari dressing. Ebony Full loves Southern cooking wowed our diners. Vicky Wasson's famous lasagna, Betty's lemon chiffon pie, Allie Kaplan Thompson's polenta cake with peaches, blackberries, and whipped cream. Rachel Cush's Mexican dinner, Laurie's Meter's Maryland crab cakes. Sarah Wright's amazing quesadillas, never mind her pizza. The winter we had Friday night pizzas. In October 2012, Jennifer Boyden and Marion Posner put on an Elizabethan dinner before an ATTP event. The menu provided a Shakespeare quotation with each course. The dinner led off with Fluellen's sleek leek potage, creamy leek and potato soup, served with Sunnyfield Bakery's most salubrious sliced bread and butter, and the quotation, "Lovers make moan, his eyes were green as leeks." Thisbe of Midsummer Night's Dream. Leeks from Booty Farm and Helen Steele, potatoes and onions from D. Filippi's. What would the store have been in recent years without Jack Waldron, Kathy Darenforth, Crosby and Andrea Kennett, Bill Cochran, Rachel Anderson, Claire Hanfield, Christina Hall, Catherine Scharf, and the rest? Bill Cochran's Polish asides and riddles for the day, Jack's weekly Thursday morning breakfast with Glenn Evans, Andrea's artwork and laugh, and Crosby's steady, kind presence. Of course, I'm almost done. Of course, the last few years have had their own flavor, and another amazing turn of events. About 5 years ago, again, the other store, Belle Stafford came and asked if she could come on board, perhaps as a manager. I said yes. She has taken a fun but disorganized organization and turned it into a business that may not make it into Forbes magazine, but at least has numbers to explain every facet of the operation. Employees who know there's someone who knows the score, and a functioning group where communication is up there with service in our mission statement. Yes, we have one of those now. Belle has brought in the likes of Kelly Goodson, Polly Mahoney, and Hilary Mangan, amazing visionaries and workers. To wind up, I'd like to invite you all to join us in our latest bright idea. Starting on Friday, January 29th, we propose a weekly gathering for anyone who'd like to stop by. We will set up several portable fire pits out behind the store, each with a merry fire and some seating around it. And we'll offer something hot to eat, like maybe Hilary's chili or soup or stew with Peg's bread, maybe also cocoa and s'mores. We're grateful to our friend who goes, anyway, blah, blah, blah. If there's bad weather Friday, we'll go to Sunday instead. We haven't decided on a time for this event, but we'd like to ask you here tonight to put in your ideas. Amy will help you by way of Zoom's handy chat function. I'm horrified to see it's 17 minutes after 7. Thank you all. Back to Willa, and I hope there's time to hear from everybody who wants to say something.
Well, Katy, thank you so much for all of that. It's so wonderful to hear. And so, yes, now all your stories. I think there are several ways right now you can communicate that you want to talk. You can go, if you go to participants at the bottom of the screen and click on it, in the lower right-hand corner, it says raise hand, and you can click on that, or you can say in the chat that you'd like to talk, or you can just wave. And Amy, do you want to sort of call on people?
Yes, I will.
So,
I will.
yes, please.
And,
What about Nancy?
Yeah, that's what I wanted to say. Polly, is Nancy on the phone ready to speak?
No, we lost Nancy, but I'll try to get her back on.
Okay.
Hopefully I can get her back on, but why don't you have some other folks share, and in the meantime, I'll try to get Nancy back.
All right. We have had people raise hands, and there's so many people on here, I can't make it work. So,
Oh, hi, Dale.
can somebody wave their hand like wavy, wavy, wavy that wants to speak? That
Ashana.
Ashana, why don't you do it?
You're on mute, Ashana.
Can you
I
hear me?
know. There I go. I have a whole bunch of stories. My first favorite is stopping at the other store. I have a cup of hot chocolate with Andrea at the end of the day. And I was probably there 20, 25 minutes, and a man came in and said, the red lights were on and traffic was backed up in Tamworth Village for, 7 or 8 cars. Totally unaware of that. But my first story of the other store is when I first moved to town, and I walked from Rebecca Pugh's house to the village, and I saw this prehistoric beast in the river. And it just blew me away. I ran into the other store where June and Hooper were, and I said, there's a prehistoric animal in the river, come see. And they came with me, and Hooper said, blah, 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 blah. And June said, it's a great blue heron. But I had never seen one before, so those are, I won't hog it all up because I'm sure everybody has some fabulous stuff to say, but thank you for, now that there's so much contrast in my world, there is no place like home. I gotta say, what an amazing place to be. Anyway, I'm gonna stop talking now.
Hi, everybody. I have Nancy on the phone, and it's been difficult to get her into the room. So I'm just going to hold up the phone. Nancy, are you ready to go? Okay, you just speak up, and hopefully everybody can hear you. Go ahead.
I'm talking through the phone, correct?
Can anybody hear Nancy? It's not very loud. Hold on just a moment, Nancy.
There should be a speakerphone on it.
Try again, Nancy.
Okay. You ready to go?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hold on just a moment, Nancy.
Maybe turn down your computer volume or your phone volume so that it won't interfere with you talking to us.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Okay.
Can you hear me? Yes, we can. Okay.
Okay. All right. Now go ahead.
Hi. I'm so glad you're having stories about the other store. It is a wonderful place. I started probably in the late 50s and ran it for many years. When I first was there, Wadi and Earl Remick and we're running the store, And with me, there was an Emma Trask who I took over from, and she was helping them. Up to that point, the Remics themselves were running the stool. Waddy and Earl ran the store, and Earl at the time was a representative in Concord, and he loved the other store because he sat on the stools and talked what was happening in Concord with the people that would be visiting the store. Than to just to talk to him, which was very nice because he went to Concord about 3 times a week. And Waddy was always in the other store, and I just loved the fact that we had problems to solve, and we'd put things together so people could fix stuck vacuum cleaners, and we screwed a hook in that you could go in and clean out your vacuum cleaner and things like that. We always had an issue of the reconciling the cash drawers, and they went upstairs like they're still doing up there. And it was a time when Waddy, there was early bookkeeping, and at the time, what you had left in money was what you earned for the day, and it was a tough thing for him to have to handle payroll taxes. And I remember correcting his form, and I finally offered, if you'd like me to, I'll do those for you, because it was easier than always having to do the corrections. But when you go back to where when things were simply, you counted the cash, it was kind of a shock to them for doing that, and I was very happy to fill in that role. And I think that's still continuing. We did have the things that Katy talked about. We bought the paint. You had to squeeze out of a tube, which is done in that back room that's now a eating place, and you squeezed it into the can, and then you put the top back on and put it on the shaker to get your colors. That was long before you could just squirt it in and get the colors that you wanted. And so it was a wonderful time. And I loved inventing, as I said, so trying to solve problems was the greatest thing. I know my daughter ended up, Andy, also working in the store, and she remembered the cash drawer going upstairs that we went and helped Margaret reconciliate the cash with what was supposed to be there. And it was a wonderful opportunity with so many people that Katy has been talking about, and that she introduced to the school to come in and help to introduce people to the store and learn and to enjoy the trade, doing trade in a very simple way, but very nice. And then it got, of course, increasingly more complicated. I thank you for letting me talk. I'm having a hard time knowing if I'm being heard, but thank you. It's with joy that the store is there and has all the history of different people that have touched it and enjoyed it. Thank you so much for letting me say something. I felt it's a little hard, and I think I have almost that. Thank you.
Thank you. So
I can't see hands raised. So Willa, can you see people raising hands? I don't see it on my computer, so I'm losing it. Oh, let's let Andrea Kennett have something to say.
Hi, everybody. What a terrific opportunity to say hi. I wrote something out, and I'm afraid it's a little long, so I'm just going to try to abbreviate it. But I I started working for Katy at the Riverbank Craft Shop in 1987. We sold all kinds of stuff there, as Katy has said, Christmas balls to paintings and handmade wooden toys. It was a seasonal job and it closed in the fall. And luckily I was offered a part-time job working in the cafe, filling in for people on vacation and being trained to work on the register. June Crowell was the store manager and we became really good friends. Her ready humor and steady good nature helped me through innumerable circumstances, both in and out of the store. We shared a love of antiques and often met at Wallace Auction House to see what we could add to an already tipping pile of stuff. Junie resold a lot of her treasures in the store and at the craft shop when it was open. It was a lot of fun. And I was really looking forward to hanging out with her at Wallace Auction and the regulars. April 2009, my dad died and we cleaned out the house. Wallace Auctions took the majority of the furniture and I decided to sell off the smaller holdings. The old craft shop was empty, so Kate let June and I have a collectibles sale until such time as the Barnstormers needed it for rehearsals. It was a roaring success. Every day we'd have something to sell and replace with more. One day I was setting up the floor, moving stuff out front when I saw Junie pull up. It meant one thing, more treasures. I thought she must have gone to the auction over the weekend. Sure enough, little nightstands, a pair of cut glass table lamps, a well-loved quilt, some beautifully restored linen tablecloths, and a couple of TLC rockers. Always hopeful and sincere, Junie had a way of making all things seem possible. Just a little glue here and a little stitch there. When she came walking down the driveway through the overhead door with a round pencil-legged parlor table, I stopped. It looked very familiar. Hadn't I seen that before? Wasn't that at auction? And then it dawned. It was the old plant stand that Dad kept Mom's gigantic Christmas cactus on in the sunroom. The top had been discolored from years of water spoilage and neglect. Originally, it came from my grandmother's house in Malden. Good grief. We laughed over that for days, as I certainly could not overlook that for some strange reason, it was returned to me, so I bought it back. And I have it today, restored as best I could with my 38-year-old Boston fern holding it together. It was kind of like a boomerang table, but I've spent a lot of years at the other store. They were terrific. There's too many stories to mention, but I just want to thank you, Katy, for holding it together, having a place for us all to gather, having it be the center of town for so many years. And it wasn't easy always, I know that. And together, everybody's pitched in, and I don't think there's a time that Cross and I hadn't been traveling when we missed Tamworth and the other store. There's no place like it. So thank you, Kate, and everybody else. Thank you.
Everybody.
Thanks, Andrea. I will go to Betty Wasson and then to George Cleveland, if that's okay. Betty, you got to unmute yourself. She's coming.
Are you there?
Yes, go ahead.
Oh, hi. Okay. I didn't know if you could hear me or not. I'm not computer literate, as you know.
You're with us all right now, Betty. Share away.
Huh?
Go ahead. You're with everyone here.
I've been watching this whole thing, but I didn't know that you could hear me. Uh-oh, what did I do? So, what did you want of me? I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
You had put a hand up like you wanted to share a story. Do you have something to share?
Oh, just how wonderful it was to be at the store. The best part is seeing our neighbors every day, seeing the people come in and connecting with the community. I just loved it. I just loved it. I miss them so much. Get to see everybody. And also all the people we met through the barnstormers and stuff. It's wonderful. Okay. I was thinking today of some of them meeting people like Fay Ray, who was a star of King Kong movie. And then on the MASH, we had Billy Christopher and this stuff, and it just wonderful. All the ones you meet, the connections we had. I loved it. I loved it.
We loved having you, Betty. You were incredible.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Betty. George, do you want to go ahead? George,
Sure. First of all, thank you, everybody at the other store, for doing what you've been able to pull off during the pandemic with your curbside service, your delicious quiches, and all the other stuff. Just briefly, I have a question. I think for over 60 years, I've known the other store as the other store. But who was the first person to actually utter the words, the other store? And I know that our wonderful late friend Bill Morrissey, as he would travel the globe singing and doing concerts, that he would inevitably tell the story about where he lived in Tamworth. And he would have to mention the fact that there was the store and the other store. And that story made it all around the globe. So who actually said the other store first? Like I said, for over 60 years, I think I've called it the other store, but I could be wrong.
Peggy's saying it's Wadi Remick. Is that true, Katy?
Well, as far as I know, and others would know better, but it just was an informal thing. You'd go in the grocery store and say, well, what about a toothpaste or something? And Wadi would say, it's over the other store. And you just go over there. There was no sign. And I remember in the 80s, I think it was Anita and who made the sign or had someone make the sign that went over the door, the other store. And I, along with a number of people, thought that was sort of the beginning of the end and depressing commercial stride into, we know it's the other store. We don't need to be cute about it. We don't need a sign. So that's what I remember. Others may remember other stuff. We got used to it, and it was rather useful to have it have an actual name. We like, on Mother's Day, we often, if I remember, we put out a M apostrophe and turn it into the mother store. And then sometimes a few times we made big otters out of snow on either side of well, actually they were rabbits, or were they otters? Anyway, we called it the Otter Store, and we've called it quite a few different things, but.
Crosby has a story about a $100 bill to share. You have to unmute. There you go.
There we go. Hi, everyone. Thank you. I've got a great story about Glenn Evans, and I was working the cash register at breakfast time, and some people came in, and you kind of watch them, and for whatever reason, that I would notice if a person used a wallet or if they used a credit card, or a lot of people would just jam bills in their pocket. They would just jam the cash in their pocket. Well, Glenn came around the corner. He for whatever reason, he'd love to come around the corner. Well, he stopped a little bit, and then he looked at me. And Glenn said, I see something on the floor. Can I have it? And I said, of course, Glenn, of course. And he picked it up. It was a $100 bill. And I knew right where it came from. And an earlier customer had gone in their front pocket and dragged out a bunch of cash, and I knew where he lived. I was able to hop in the car and get him his money, and all's well that ends well. Yeah, that was a nice memory. And one of the most unusual things that ever happened to me, it's a very fond memory. One day I was at the other store looking out the front window, and the utility truck comes up. One of those ones with the boom on it, where there's a guy stands in a bucket. Well, two guys were working, both, rugged New Hampshire working man. And one guy gets up in the bucket, and he's standing up there, And then all of a sudden, no, just as a matter of fact, the guy on the ground starts walking into my vision. And without looking up, I swear to God, without looking up, he throws this big wrench up in the air, okay? And without looking, I swear to God, without looking, the guy caught it. He just put his hand out and there was the wrench. And I've always remembered it. And I'm so happy to be able to tell you guys that story.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Anyone else? Go, Katie, go ahead.
I'm torn whether to read Bill Cochran's little thing he wrote from Poland. He's sound asleep at the moment. Or whether to ask Dale to tell us about the crazy time we went off to I don't want to put anyone on the spot. Dale, do you feel like telling that story?
Does that work?
Yes.
Okay, I'll be very quick. I do think you should read Bill Cochran's, but thank you, Katie. And don't ever tell me you have a bad memory. You really need to write a novel about the other store. It really is the people's store. It's incredible. And it makes me realize that when we first got into this together, it was a vision that you had, but at the time, Katie was a little bit shy back then and has grown so much more open since she started the other store. I kind of pushed her along and went to the auction with her, and she might not remember this, but she was down on one knee. Were you the only one there? I can't remember that part. But she bought the store, and soon I was the daily cafe for a very brief, I think just 1 year or something. But we went to our first box store experience together, and I'll never forget it as long as I live. We'd never been to a BJ's or one of those, whatever they're called. And we got in there and we were hysterical at the enormous selection. And we just shopped and bought all this stuff, and then drove to Portland, Maine and bought the roll around stools and everything else. And Katie, I just found this roll of tape. I don't know if you can see it.
Oh,
but
yeah.
Original tape. I've forgotten who put the red covers on. Was it Mary Trask?
Yeah, Mary, but you did the taping around the sides?
And sat out on the porch sanding them, and it was just so much fun. But this has been amazing tonight to just realize so much has happened since I left. I just can't even believe it. And I just love that everybody loves the other store, because it was quite a little event.
I remember that the Sam's Club thing, or wherever we went, BJ Sam's, we couldn't believe these giant, things with wheels that you could put your merchandise on. And we bought 24 chairs. They're the ones that we still use in the back porch, except the one that floated down the river and ended up part of a sculpture with some driftwood. But we were just hysterical, loading up the umbrellas and all that stuff and racing around this crazy store.
So many laughs, so many hysterical laughs, because we didn't really know what we were doing, but we had a vision. Katie had a vision, and Katie.
Well, Dale, thank God you were there. I didn't have any idea what I was doing, but somehow we got through.
We got through, and it's just so great that it really is the store, the other store. I love it. Thank you, Katie, for the experience.
We all survived somehow.
Yeah, we did.
Thanks, Dale. I know
Thank
Grace Townsend wants to share something. Grace.
Hi, just super quick.
Hi, Grace.
Hi. This is so fun. It's so crazy because the other store feels very much like my history. It must be the only history the other store had, because it's my whole childhood, and I'm sure my age group feels that same way. So it's really cool to hear how much more was before us. So really appreciated the stories from Katie, and it's really fun to hear. But I really grew up there. I learned how to be an adult at the other store, how to, talk to people, customer service, money, how to handle uncomfortable situations, how to, seem mature, which was a huge, huge important thing at 14, as Willa was saying. And I have a really specific memory of when Leah Burke was in charge of scheduling. Hi, Leah. And she wanted to put me on the breakfast shifts. And I'm not a morning person. And I have a very specific memory of going in there and someone had asked me for eggs over easy. Now, I don't eat eggs. So I'm very, very good at BLTs, grilled cheeses, let me know. But someone asked for eggs over easy. And I was like, I don't know how to do that. So I started to make them. First one came out terrible. And see if my mom might remember who the actual person was. But the customer actually came into the kitchen, taught me how to make an egg over easy. I served it to her and then made it correctly the next time. So that was the other store, somebody, I can't remember if it was a regular or just somebody coming in, but yeah, just really learned a lot. And I love going back in there because it really is my childhood, and ate way too many Swedish fish while working there.
You were great. You were wonderful, great, Grace. I remember your dad, Charlie, coming in with you and Liza when you were little and having breakfast. And then I remember you as being just great to work with in the cafe. Thank you.
This is Leah. I have a quick commentary on Grace's morning scheduling that I would make her do. Somewhere I have a photo, and Katy, block your ears. I have a photo of Eliza, my sister, and Grace standing in the kitchen, and Grace is holding one of those nonstick frying pans, and the whole base of the pan just has flames coming up out of it. And it was probably not much later than, I don't know, 8:30 in the morning. So sorry, Grace.
Yeah, I really promise you I can make a really good grilled cheese. Not good at eggs.
Well, Grace, I hope, my story was when I was first working in the kitchen, sort of getting used to doing breakfast. I was very pleased when I took a breakfast order out to some ladies on the porch, one of whom was Julie Villardo. After a while, she came in and said, this is quite a nice egg sandwich. It has bacon and it has English muffins and it has some cheese, but I don't think it has any egg. And she was right. So.
Anyone else want to jump in? This is such a treat. Go ahead, Belle. Belle, you want to try?
Hi, everybody.
Hi, Belle.
Good to see you all. I just want to thank Katy for giving me the chance to get to know my town, because I was not Juno Lamb, and I was not Deb and Charlie bringing their kids and raising their kids there. I was just a blur, and I came to Tamworth as an outsider, sort of, with a baby in tow, and it took me a long time to finally really get to know the store. And I just want to, I think my story, I want to tell that story, Katy, when it was after hours. Sarah Wright, who was amazing, was showing up with all the groceries, and in the whirlwind that she somehow would fit that into everything else. And I was helping her unload the groceries, and you were there, and I was looking through the windows of her car to the other side, and I was like, I want to work at the other store. And I looked at Sarah and I said, should I work at the other store? And she said, absolutely. And then I looked at you, Katy, and I said, Katy, can I work at the other store? And you said, yes. When can you start? It was amazing. It was just amazing. But I will never forget my first day working there. I had no idea what went on in the span of just one day at that store. Just one day, right, Crosby? I see you nodding your head. I mean, the number of vendors, the number of people in and out, all the things that we sold. I asked Andrea Kennett to go around and make a list of all the local vendors who had merchandise there that we sold. She came up with 52, if you count all the authors and the CDs. Remember that, Andrea? Oh my heavens. But is Blythe still there?
Blythe, yes. I
wanted to ask the people on this Zoom, anyone who's worked there, I think there is a rite of passage for everyone who works there with making fraps that your first frap completely explodes all over everything and the wall and everything, and you're mortified. Can you just like raise your hand if that ever happened to you? Oh my God. Oh, Willa, you escaped the frap explosion? I don't know how you did that. Anyway, it's just great. It's so great to hear Katy tell about the history of the store that is, and Katy, I'm glad you have that all in writing. I think you have that all in writing, right?
I do, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's sort of a rough,
Yes. I mean, nobody has it in their head the way you do. So, so this is beautiful. And thank you, Amy, for making this happen, and Willa, and what a great thing to see all your faces.
It's fabulous to see everyone. I want to just jump in and thank you, Bill. That was neat. And mention Blythe. I saw Blythe and Leslie, I think, in a bit ago. I want to say hi and thank you, Blythe.
Hi.
Hi, there you are. Yes, I omitted your name. How great to see you. You were there too in that gang, and I meant to include you. How's it going?
Very well. I'm happy to be here for a few days.
Oh, you're right here in Tamworth. Oh,
yeah.
Great. Oh, well, of course, because there's Leslie. That's great. I would say come visit, but
after the pandemic.
Maybe you can
someday.
Yeah, come bang in the window. Come out and say hi. And I'm thrilled also to see Lawrence Little. Hi, Lawrence. Hi, Larry.
Katy, Marion Posner would like to speak. Marion,
Okay,
you want to say something?
Yeah.
Is that okay, Katy?
Yes.
And then Liza.
Great.
It will be quick. I worked for years with a community council in England, and the person who ran it is now very elderly, and she said, because she worked for a long time in small rural communities, that a small village store reaches places that no other thing can reach. Just listen to that it reaches places that nothing else can reach. It feels important to me. Thank you, everybody who has contributed to this, because that is a big thing to do. A place that nothing else can get to.
Marion, I want that quote. We could put it on the website, the new website.
You should. Well, you should, because actually she made a wonderful bag that is now over most of England.
Oh,
so I'll send you the bag.
Oh, please. Yes. Thank you.
Okay.
And the village stores in England are so great. In 2005, I think I got to go with a bunch of people from Vermont who were interested in promoting saving village stores in Vermont and around New England on a trip to England where we visited a bunch of village stores and found all kinds of things to copy and try to emulate. They were just great. And of course, talking to Albert Lamb, Will and Molly's grandfather, about the one that he's very involved with over there in the Cotswolds too, has been great.
Liza, how about you, Liza Townsend?
Sure, I just wanted to say a quick thing before I have to drive and I'm gonna lose phone service. But first of all, thank you so much. This was so lovely. I'm so glad. I feel very far away from home these days. So it's a lovely little connection to the small town that I miss very much. But just wanted to say thank you to all the people who, as Grace said, helped me become an adult at that store. I don't really remember the days on the stool as a small child, but I still count back change like Crosby taught me to. I still wash dishes, soaping everything separately from the rinsing like Betty taught me to save water. I still have so many things that I've carried. So I just want to say thank you, and I have to dip out, but I hope to catch.
Liza, thank you so much. You introduced me. Thank you for introducing me to Crocs. I'm still wearing them.
Amazing.
Among other things.
I have a pair in the car right now. I'm about to switch out of my snowboarding boots and put them on, and it's going to be glorious.
Thanks, Liza.
Thanks all. Have a good one.
I want to jump in. Yeah, lovely to see everybody of all ages and all over the planet, sort of almost. I wanted to thank Ashana for mentioning Hooperberry, because he was such an important part of the early days and such a Tamworth character. And also to mention somebody right now who's an unsung hero of the other store, who is Peter Murray, who goes out every morning, except Sunday and Monday, to a secret location on Route 16 and picks up the Daily Sun for the store and brings it over. And he's been doing that for a couple of years. And he's just a wonderful example of one more person who makes the place happen.
Did you have something else you wanted to say, Katy?
Oh, I should read, can I read Bill Cochran's thing that he wrote to us?
Sure. Yeah, I think everybody's on the edge of their chair still.
Well, you're nice to let it go on and on. So Bill wrote that, I can't pronounce greetings in Polish, but he said greetings and then the Polish word for it, and that he's sound asleep because, and also he has no idea how to do Zoom. When I tried to answer Katie's call to recount specific events, stories of things that happened when I was working at the other store, mostly what came to mind was the general feelings of a community effort to be a vital part of Tamworth. Everybody doing their own thing, but at the same time working together. No specific anecdotes. Wandering through my memory are such things as clearing the sidewalk before opening in winter, soaking the African baskets, crunching the numbers after closing, setting up the Christmas tree, mixing paint, moving things to and from the basement, helping customers find what they needed, having delicious breakfasts and lunches, dealing with the ATM, working on displays and sometimes a little rearranging of the store, running to IMH or EMH for hardware and sometimes groceries, calling the Tamworth Fire Department because I smell gas downstairs, leaving a winter after hours meeting to find my car clear of snow, making mocha fraps, and most important, interesting conversations and connections with an eclectic group of customers, co-workers, and other townspeople. I loved it all. The memories are happy, positive, and mostly of you all. Thank you. Keep up the good work, making sure Tamworth is fed and supplied. Yes, you are among the town heroes. Keep safe, warm, and healthy. Bill. And if anybody wants his email, it's okay to give it out, he says.
So lovely. Anyone else want? Eliza, you got a story to share? Anybody else?
Okay.
I know we're all just like feeling glowy about you, Katy, and well, all of everything the other store has meant. It's
well, I'm feeling glowing to see all of you, and I wish I could see. It's, you know, it really underscores that COVID is a real thing and we're not seeing each other. So it is just really sweet that you guys the Cook Library cooks cooked up this great idea of a way to get together around a certain topic. And I'm glad that you figured out how to record the whole thing, because I would have, you know, because going forward, it was too bad not to have the feedback and questions on Willie's one. But this is neat that it's sort of an expanding medium, and you guys are so great. Thank you for doing it for all of us.
Thank you.
Really fun to see everybody. Thank you for.
You're a Tamworth treasure, Katy. Thank you so much. Anyone else have anything they want to share?
Everybody, I'm just going to echo our friend Joe Biden and say it's all doing it together. That is what it's about. Not a one person has a life of its own, just with goodwill kind of floating around in the atmosphere.
And I think Katy asked us, which we've gotten lost, what time people would like to have gatherings behind the other store. I think that was like a little question. So you can either put that on the chat box here. You can be sure to let Belle or Katy or Polly know. Somebody saying 2 o'clock, you can put that in there and let Katy know.
We thought, well, you know, if it was early afternoon after lunch, maybe it would, you know, the chili and soup would make more sense. On the other hand, people are busy during the day on a Friday, and maybe a late afternoon thing, even if it's getting a little cold and dark, is better because you're done with your day and it's more of a easier to gather. So we just weren't sure. Somewhere in the middle, 3, we have no idea. Let us know.
Great.
Look at the pussycat.
Good night, everybody. What a nice way to end this day.
Yeah.
Good night. Thank you, Katie.
Bye.
Thank you, Dale. Thank you, Belle.
Bye. Yep.
Thank you.
Willa, thank you, Amy. Love to everybody.
My eyes.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
How do I leave?
Nice.
Bye.
It's very cute. It's very lovely.
Thanks, Willa.